This is
I
Dr.
see.
Say. Sorry. Very well known on the Native Hawaiian topics, and I'll just leave it at that, so I don't say anything wrong. And I'll turn it over to you. And he's just told me he's from Hawaii. So,
Well, live on Hawaii, but from Hawaii.
what's it, Corman's Waimea Valley?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll turn this over to him now. Okay, thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So my name is Keanu. I just finished giving a guest lecture in Lynette's poli-sci course, political science course. So she asked me to stay after and for the community, I guess. So I didn't want to clarify things. I'm not Native Hawaiian focused, right? Even though I'm Native Hawaiian. I'm a political scientist, so my area is international relations and public law. My focus of my doctoral research and my larger articles talk about Hawaii as a country, not as a native. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on that. Okay. Let's see. So I'm a graduate of the Kamehameha Schools, graduated back in 1982. After Kamehameha, I went to a military college, New Mexico Military Institute, got my commission as a second lieutenant through the early commissioning program, transferred to UH, got my bachelor's in 1987, played Army in both, I was in the Army National Guard, both active and reserve, got out after 10 years. My old unit that I used to be in, I got out as a battery commander, Charlie Battery Commander. My old unit is now deployed in Afghanistan. In fact, I have a son who's in the unit, but he's also a police officer, is in Afghanistan. So I'm very much in the system. I'm not outside of the system. I'm not trying to destroy the system, but the system definitely needs a course correction. Okay, that's really what this is all about. All right, we don't know, or we didn't know Hawaii's history. We're starting to know it now, and I think what is happening on Mauna Kea, it's galvanizing many people from all walks of life, from different countries, to begin to start to ask the right questions, right? You might say we've been asking the wrong questions. You answer the wrong questions, you don't get the right answers. So basically what's happening is, it's not just the kia'i on the mauna, but I've met so many people that have gone up there, and I've sat in a couple of my classes, along with other college instructors. And they range from police officers to law enforcement, to attorneys, to former ATF, pilots, flight attendants. I mean, it's pretty amazing who's going up there. Jason Momoa, right? I mean, it's really amazing that it's attracting. It's like a beacon. Yeah? I've given 3 presentations, 3 workshops to the Maui County Council in the beginning of this summer, 3 of them, and I'm identified as a resource for them. And people have been watching that online, on YouTube. And that prompted people to contact me, like a sergeant in the police department, who began to ask specific questions after watching that. And what that person told me was, he really didn't know Hawaii's history, and this guy is from Kamehameha. He didn't know Hawaii's history. But after watching the workshops that I've done for Maui County Council, he said, now I'm maka'ala. Maka'ala in Hawaiian is now I know. My eyes have opened. And then he asked hard questions. He said, I know your son, I heard that your son is in the police department like I am, and you're in the Army, you're a captain. I need to ask this question, am I committing war crimes when I arrest Aboriginal Hawaiian subjects? Now, just the use of the terms Aboriginal Hawaiian subjects, that means he was actually watching my video. Like, Aboriginal is a specific word used, not indigenous, right? War crimes. These are hard questions that require hard answers. But the fact that he's asking is profound, right? So also I've been contacted by Army personnel from Hawaii that have been deployed to Kosovo and in Afghanistan. And they're asking questions because people are watching the presentations. So, for me as an educator, that's very satisfying, right? Because I believe in education. Number one, education. So I'm also involved with two attorneys who are representing a few of the people who got arrested, right? And we just submitted a motion to dismiss, so I'm gonna provide some context for that. I'm also involved with the National Lawyers Guild. That is it's a bar association of American attorneys in America. Like the American Bar Association, this is the National Lawyers Guild. And they put together a subcommittee under their international committee called the Hawaiian Kingdom Subcommittee. I'm one of the co-chairs of that. We had our annual convention was held in North Carolina a few weeks ago. And what's on the table right now, the voting just went out across America for a resolution passed by the National Lawyers Guild, the national office, basically demanding that the United States begin to comply with the law of occupation. Now that is coming from attorneys in America, right? So this word is spreading. In fact, I was in, before the North Carolina, the convention, I was in London meeting with Amnesty International about Hawaii's situation. And they are seriously considering identifying Hawaii as an armed conflict with the United States because it has all the trappings and evidence of legality, right? And that person that I spoke to up there, first thing he admitted to me was, I didn't know Hawaii's history. See, that's always the case. I didn't know. Now you know. Now you know, now you gotta do something. And everybody has something they gotta do, whether you're a police officer, you work at Amnesty International, you're an attorney, you're a teacher, everybody has something to do because now they know, right? So, with that, Lynette asked me to give a talk about the legalities of what's going on in Mauna Kea, okay? My approach is political science and law. I defer to the hula people who deal with hula. That's not my area, right? But I know the law, and that's what I'm gonna talk to you guys about today. You guys good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, one thing that we need to understand is that there's a difference between what is called the country, which has what is called state sovereignty, and a government, okay? A lot of times when we say there was an overthrow in 1893, it assumes that everything was overthrown. No, there was something specifically identified that was overthrown. And what was overthrown in 1893, which was admitted to be illegal by the United States president, was the government, not the country. That's important. Now, how did I come to see that where nobody else could see it, right? Actually, from my military background. In 1990, I was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma as a captain going through Officers Advanced Course, right? Anybody know what was going on in 1990?
Pre-Iraq War.
First Gulf War.
Yeah.
The first Gulf War. Desert Shield, after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And Saddam Hussein overthrew the Kuwaiti government. And from Baghdad, Saddam Hussein issued an edict annexing Kuwait, making it one of the provinces of Iraq. Now in Fort Sill, we knew that was all rubbish. Kuwait was not part of Iraq. Kuwait was being occupied by Iraq. Even though its government was overthrown, Kuwait still existed. And that our job was to expel the Iraqis out of the Kuwait territory so the Kuwaiti government can come back in. Thus distinguishing between the government and the state. When I looked at Hawaii's history, exactly the same thing happened. The United States military overthrew the Hawaiian Kingdom government, illegally admitted to by President Cleveland. But by overthrowing that government, that did not overthrow the country. And that was my turning point. That's when I went, okay, wait. If the government was overthrown, how did the United States get the country? Called Hawaii, the Hawaiian Kingdom. When I talk about the Hawaiian Kingdom, I'm talking about a country that my great-grandparents were born in. My tutu's parents was born in the 1880s. The country there was the Hawaiian Kingdom. Bernice Pauahi Bishop, who established the Kamehameha schools in 1884, and then the school was formed in 1887. That all happened in the kingdom, right? King Kamehameha I, he was the progenitor of the Hawaiian Kingdom. That's the country I'm talking about. I'm not talking about some sovereignty group claiming to be the kingdom. I'm not talking about some king or queen or prime minister. I'm talking about a country that I am a descendant from, right? And that country is multi-ethnic. And the term Hawaiian, we use it wrong today. Hawaiian is a short term for Hawaiian subject. Like British is a short term for British subject. You can be black and be British. You can be black and be Hawaiian. Does that make sense? Because you did have people that were black that were Hawaiian who got naturalized, especially freed slaves coming from the United States. One of my doctoral students, Willie Kawai, actually did his doctoral dissertation on that. Okay, so these terms are so important that we need to understand. So you might say we've been explaining a football game using baseball rules. I'm going to bring in football rules. I'm not even changing the facts, but the facts will all of a sudden look different. Okay? You guys with me so far? Okay. So before I get into the legality of Mauna Kea and land titles, because that's what we're going to get into, we need to understand the bigger picture of Hawaii. So, if the United States admitted to illegally overthrowing the Hawaiian government and committed to restore that government, but they didn't, because of political wrangling going on in the Congress, because they want Pearl Harbor, the country still exists. How did the country become a part of the United States? So according to Professor Oppenheim, leading expert in international law, it says cession of state territory is the transfer of sovereignty over state territory. When I say state, means country, by the owner state to another state. And the only form in which a cession can be effected is an agreement in a treaty. Okay, so that means one government representing a country will cede territory to another government representing another country. This process here, ceding, is what is called cession. Okay? And a treaty is the evidence of the cession. So let's take that same concept and apply it here locally. So if I live in Waianae Valley, and have a 1/4 acre, right? If I'm gonna sell it to Joe Kealoha for $1 in love, because that's my son, I'm gonna make a deed, right? I'm gonna draft a deed, and I'm going to convey my property to him. My son then will say he owns the property because he can cite the deed. So the deed is the evidence of the conveyance. Make sense? The deed at the international level is called a treaty. The conveyance at the international level is called cession. Same thing. Also called ceded lands. Okay? You guys following me? Okay. So, one country can cede territory to another country during a time of peace, or can transfer territory during war, called a treaty of peace. Here we have the United States of America. The former British colonies here won their independence, became 13 independent states in a confederation, later turning themselves into a union called a federation, 1789. But how did this country acquire all of that? They acquired these territories from other countries, other sovereign states. The first transfer of territory to the United States from a foreign country was from France, 1803, Louisiana Purchase. All territory west of the Mississippi River and adjacent to Mexican territory. And then this area here was transferred in 1819 by the Spanish. It's called ceded lands. Pacific Northwest used to be British, 1848. Alaska, transferred by Russia, 1867. All happening during a time of peace. Now when you have a time of war, a state of war, and you bring it to a state of peace, you need a treaty of peace. All this territory used to be Mexican, transferred in 1848, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. So all territory north of the Rio Grande now became American territory. That's important. Now what you have here is these territories acquired by treaty would then allow Washington, D.C., the U.S. Congress, to pass laws that apply to these territories. But the United States Congress cannot pass laws that apply to Florida, what we call Florida today, in 1818. What applied in Florida was Spanish law, not American law. Before 1803 and 1802, French law applied here. After 1803, American law, passed by the Congress. Same with Mexican law, then American law, British law, then American law, Russian law, and then American law. So that's how it works. So you have to be a part of a country before the United States Congress can enact laws that apply to that territory. So how did Hawaii get annexed? We should be thinking, where's the treaty, right? Joint resolution to provide for annexing the Hawaiian Islands to the United States. Passed July 7, 1898. This is not a treaty. It's a law passed by the United States Congress. It's not a treaty. That's what's important. So if it's a law passed by the United States Congress, then it can only apply to American territory. Hawaii has to be a part of the American territory before this law can apply. We don't have a treaty. In fact, the treaties were killed. One in 1883, the other in 1898. The last one was by a signature petition of 21,000 signatures of our kupuna, who killed the treaty, which forced the United States to pass a law just taking Hawaii. Then it says that this American law says that the Republic of Hawaii cedes and transfers to the United States the absolute fee and ownership of all public government or crown lands. Okay. The territory on Mauna Kea is the Ahupua of Kaohe, which is government land. Government land under Hawaiian statute. Supposedly ceded by this American law. But this American law cannot cede anything, right? Because cession is a bilateral relationship, right? Somebody ceding to somebody, not somebody over here saying, I got it. That's like somebody claiming to own property in Waianae Valley. Brother, where's your deed? Well, I just wrote something, I own it. No, you don't own it. I know who owns it, right? Now, you may be in control of the territory illegally, but you don't own it. Now, the importance of a treaty was also expressed in 1900. See, today we don't even talk about treaty or lack thereof. Well, we are now because we're educated. But I would say 20 years ago, nobody even knew what a treaty was. Nobody even bothered to question how Hawaii became a part of the United States. Well, this is from the Maui News. Okay, this is the Maui News. An article on this guy Thomas Clark in 1900, just 2 years after so-called Hawaii's annexation by that joint resolution. So this editorial is on Thomas Clark, who was a candidate for territorial senator from Maui. Thomas holds that it was an unconstitutional proceeding on the part of the United States to annex the islands without a treaty. Obviously, he knew something in 1900, huh? And that as a matter of fact, the islands are not annexed and cannot be. And as the Democrats come into power, they will show the thing up and it's true and demonstrate that the islands are still independent, meaning they're not part of the United States. Now, when I'm talking about Thomas Clark at this time, I'm talking about my great-grandparents' generation. My Tutu's dad was born in 1880, right? This is his generation. They knew. Then the editor goes on and says, Thomas, necessity knows no law. And it was absolutely necessary to annex the islands at the time it was done. And further, Thomas, if it becomes necessary to annex Cuba, it will be done quicker than a wink. See, now this guy from Wailuku, Maui is trying to act like he works for the State Department. But he's from Wailuku. And then he goes on to say, and further, Thomas, if it becomes necessary to annex Cuba, it will be quicker than a wink. It is but fair to give you credit for being honest in your views, Thomas, but you don't quite understand the American people just yet, hence you're very misleading. The seeds of Fox News. Just make it up and repeat, repeat, repeat. Build the bubble, and right now, the bubble just went pop. Now we're back to reality. No treaty. So, what resonates out of this article in 1900, the Maui newspaper, is that Thomas knew there's no treaty. Thomas also, I guess he's not American because he doesn't quite understand the Americans. Who's this guy Thomas? Yeah? Found out who Thomas is. I know why now he knows there was no treaty. Remember that signature petition we talked about, the 21,000 signatures I told you that killed the treaty in 1897, which forced the Congress to pass a law? Petition against annexation. This is from Wailuku, District of area of Wailuku. There's Thomas Clark right here, age 42, and written next to his name is Hawaiian, because Thomas Clark was Haole. He was actually British, I found. He got naturalized, became a Hawaiian subject. That's why they wrote in, next to his name, Hawaiian. So you don't see John Kamaka Vivoole, because you already assumed he's Hawaiian. You see a Haole name, Hawaiian. That's citizenship. He knew. So the thing is, if he knew, how come we don't know? How come we don't know? We've been brainwashed to believe something that's not true. All the schools got taken over in 1906. My tutu's generation was brainwashed to believe they're American and to speak English. By the time I got to my parents' generation, my dad was born in 1939, it's already a done deal. Or it's already institutionalized. By the time it got to me at the Kamehameha schools, 1978 to 1982, out of sight, out of mind. I didn't know. In fact, I joined the military because all my uncles was in the military. Drafted, but it was all in the military, Vietnam. But we're brainwashed. That's why we don't know. That's why education is important. They hijacked our educational system in 1906. We're retaking it over. Now people are going to get educated without being biased. Yeah? People are going to start ask critical questions. And this is what Senator William Allen said about the joint resolution of annexation of Hawaii. The Constitution and the statutes are territorial in their operation. That is, they cannot have any binding force or operation beyond the territorial limits of the government that created it. In other words, the U.S. Constitution and statutes cannot reach across the territorial boundaries of the United States into the territorial domain of another government and affect that government or persons or property therein. He even stated that the joint resolution of annexation is invalid. That's pretty heavy. He just took out the main point about annexation. But the point is, Hawaii's not part of the United States. They never got Hawaii. This is no different than Saddam Hussein claiming to have annexed Kuwait. Same thing, just another time. But it never happened. Then, 2 years later, in 1900, the U.S. Congress passes another law, which is limited to U.S. territory, changing the name of the Hawaiian Kingdom government infrastructure to the territory of Hawaii. And then, 1959, the U.S. Congress enacted another law that changed the name from the territory of Hawaii to the state of Hawaii. And this is where we live today. In fact, we do not live in a state of Hawaii. We live in a state of confusion. Because you can't create the state of Hawaii in a foreign country. Right? And then in 1993, the United States Congress passes a joint resolution apologizing for the illegal overthrow. Sorry. Sorry. But they only apologize to the natives. Then the natives react to it, make it like we gotta be like Native Americans, and then we want federal recognition as a tribe, but yet that all is for naught, because we're not even in the United States. Amazing, huh? You guys ever saw the movie The Matrix? This is Matrix 1, you all took the red pill. Now you're all going down the rabbit hole. You know, you can hear my presentation, you go, wow, that's pretty trippy, unreal. You take my class for a semester, like I'm teaching 22 teachers at the Kamehameha schools, oh, we going in and down the rabbit hole. And you're gonna see a teapot talking to you. And then when you come out of the rabbit hole, after one whole semester, you're gonna go from the OMG to the WTF. And then you're gonna go, we gotta fix this problem. So I ask the teachers, how do we fix the problem? Education. Exactly. Don't blame. They're all dead. Just know. Right? My tutu said, never point your finger at anybody. Anybody know why? Because 3 fingers pointing back at you. Exactly. A lot of Hawaiians know that one. So my tutu said, put your hand down. Yeah? Don't blame anybody. Blame yourself for not knowing. So that's us. If anybody to blame, blame ourselves. And then in the joint resolution, it frivolously states that the Republic of Hawaii ceded 1.8 million acres of Crown government and public lands without the consent or compensation to the native Hawaiian people of Hawaii or their sovereign government. Problem, they didn't cede anything because there was no treaty. So we've been saying ceded lands without a treaty. So we gotta stop saying ceded lands.
So it's considered stolen land.
You cannot steal land, it doesn't move. How do I steal this? Cannot. Actually, the definition of real property, look it up. Dictionary, it's called immovable property. As opposed to personal property, which is anything detached from the land, like this, that's movable. I can steal this. I can attempt to steal this table. I cannot steal this land. So either I can trespass on the land, right? Or I can take control over the land.
So is it crown land?
Depends. Crown lands are identified by Ahupua. So on the Mauna, where the Kia'i are, at the bottom, that Ahupua is called Humu'ula. Humu'ula, oh no, crown land. Ka'ohe, Mauna Kea, government land.
Ah,
Yeah. And it's all identified in the Hawaiian statutes. Yeah. So it's specific. What are government lands administered by the Minister of the Interior, and what are crown lands administered by the Crown Land Commissioners? Yeah. But see, if you folks don't even know any of this stuff, I don't have to worry about asking anybody's question, because we've been asking the wrong questions. Yeah. We've been assuming too many things. And remember, we should never assume, because a colonel once told me when I was a lieutenant, don't assume. You guys know why, huh? Because you make an ass out of you and me. Ass. Ass, you, me. So don't assume. No. And if you don't know, don't say nothing. Don't make it up. Just say, sir, I'll get back to you with information. So to reiterate, this is Washington, D.C. We got borders. U.S. laws have no effect beyond the borders of the United States. We teach this. This is called Poli-Sci 130, Intro to American Politics. Limitation of law. So Hawaii is not part of the United States then, right? Yeah, the evidence shows it's not, right? So if it's not, then what are we? On the international law, we're actually occupied. The United States Supreme Court, again, restates what the congressmen were stating, that the laws of no nation can justly extend beyond its own territories. They can have no force to control the sovereignty of any other nation. In 1936, they also said neither the federal constitution nor the laws passed in pursuant of it have any force in foreign territory, and operations of the nation in such territory must be governed by treaties, international understandings and compacts, and the principles of international law. What we've been doing, not knowing, is in trying to understand Hawaii's history through the U.S. Constitution. That's why we've been kind of looking toward Native Americans, because they kind of look like Native Hawaiians. But yet we have a completely different history, right? But then we want to try to be a tribe, because that's all we know. Now we realize Hawaii's still a country, it's not part of the United States. We got to look at it through international law. So basically, we've been explaining a football game using baseball rules. U.S. Constitution, baseball rules. International law, football rules. Once you apply football rules to a football game, everything starts to make sense. In fact, it makes so much sense, it's scary. When you apply it, the baseball rules, to a football game, it just gets confusing. And then you blame everybody for things that you don't understand. Yeah? So what do you do when a Hawaiian doesn't know? Blame the haole. And then you go, hey Hawaiian, you put haole, take it easy. What you do, blaming your left foot. You know, but now we're starting to know we didn't know the rules. So you might say Hawaii was kidnapped in 1893, but it's going to be treated like it's adopted. We have no adoption papers. It's called kidnapping. In international law, it's called occupation. So Hawaii is still a separate country. So you have two sovereign entities. Domestic law of the United States, 1898 Annexation Resolution, 1900 Territorial Act, Statehood Act of 1959, and the Apology Resolution. These are all US laws, limited to US territory. And these are Hawaiian Kingdom laws. This is what my great-grandfather then was under, right? My tutu's dad and mom. These laws are limited to Hawaiian territory. These laws are limited to US territory. They're separated by international law. So international law is literally the law between nations. Treaties, custom. We have neither with regard to Hawaii's annexation. All we have are American laws that have been illegally imposed in a foreign country for 126 years. That's all we have. That is when you go from the OMG to the WTF. Now what? Well, it's course correction, crisis management, resource management. It's not changing, reinventing the wheel. It's called realizing that that's our wheel. We just gotta adjust it under international rules. And then ultimately bring it to an end, the occupation. And these international rules are the Hague and Geneva Convention. They regulate occupations. So the only thing that changed in 1893 were names. When somebody says, oh, the US created the government here. No, they didn't. They hijacked the government that was already here. It's like Hawaiian Airlines flying in the sky with American Airlines. And British Airways. Everybody's flying in the sky called sovereign states. All they did was land troops onto the Hawaiian Kingdom plane, took over the pilot, the Queen and her cabinet, replaced them with insurgents, Marines protect them, and in time release sleeping gas into the cabin, and everybody falls asleep. Then they paint the plane red, white, and blue, and say American Airlines. But everybody looks at this plane in a way, something's wrong. See, because Hawaiian Airlines, the make of the plane is an Airbus. Okay, it's a type of plane. American Airlines is Boeing. What people are realizing is it's an Airbus painted like it's American Airlines. Like something looks different. And nobody can get exactly what's wrong, but something's not right in Hawaii. Yeah, wrong plane. And after 126 years, the paint is chipping off. And that's what people are starting to see. A country that never left. Then that name was changed to the provisional government, to the republic, to the territory, to the state. In fact, Hawaii's public school system all goes back to the Kingdom era. Most of the ILH schools are from the Kingdom era. Yeah, how's that? Everything is from the Kingdom era. Queen's Hospital, the courts, the legislature, the Attorney General, all from the Kingdom era. What they did, regime change. Changed the pilot and changed the course. So if that's what they did then, change the pilot, change the course back. Make sense? It's really that simple. The best place to hide something is right in front of you and get everybody to believe something different. Right? Now it's amazing on this so-called annexation of Hawaii, even the United States Department of Justice, Office of Legal Counsel, came up with an opinion. The same Office of Legal Counsel that came up with the opinion that a sitting president cannot be indicted. That Special Counsel Mueller, remember investigating Donald Trump? He had to abide by the legal counsel's opinion. Well, hey, here's another opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel. Quote, despite the constitutional objections, Congress approved the joint resolution and President McKinley signed the measure in 1898. Nevertheless, whether this action demonstrates the constitutional power of Congress to acquire territory is certainly questionable. It is therefore unclear which constitutional power Congress exercised when it acquired Hawaii by joint resolution. See, this is when they went, uh-oh, WTF, WTF. So I guess if the Department of Justice says we're unclear, I think we should all be unclear how Hawaii became a part of the United States, because it never became a part of the United States. What I find interesting is this is in 1988, just 5 years later, an apology resolution kicks in. And everybody is now going native. Akaka bill. That's a good course, not correction, but deflection. Yeah. What has happened since then is people that our experts in this area are starting to look at Hawaii's situation. Dr. Matthew Craven, 2002, drafted a legal opinion on the continuity of the Hawaiian Kingdom under international law. Remember the state? Also, legal opinion from Professor Chavez, legal opinion on war crimes related to the United States occupation of Hawaii. Professor Chavez is the leading expert on war crimes and international criminal law from the Middlesex University Law School in London. Very well respected. He also stated here, statutory limitation of war crimes is prohibited by customary law. You commit a war crime, there's no statute of limitation. You got a target on your back until you die. You know they're still chasing Nazis. That's something you don't want to play with. It's called war crime, violations of the laws of occupation. Then he goes on to say the prohibition of statutory limitation of war crimes has been proclaimed in several resolutions of the United States General Assembly. Also cites in a diplomatic note to the government of Iraq in 1991, remember that first Gulf War? The government of the United States declared that under international law, violations of the Geneva Conventions, the Geneva Protocol, or related international laws of armed conflict are war crimes. And individuals guilty of such violations may be subject to prosecution at any time without any statute of limitation. This includes members of the Iraqi armed forces and the civilian government officials, who now is where the rubber hits the road in Hawaii. This is what prompted this police officer to contact me from the department and say, am I committing war crimes when I arrest Hawaiian subjects? This is what's prompting these types of questions. Hard, harsh questions, complex issues, but they have answers, right? Course correction, right? We still need police department. We still need the fire department, which also was from the Kingdom era. Also, we have a legal opinion from Professor Federico Lenzerini, University of Siena, Italy. Legal opinion on international human rights law and self-determination of peoples related to the United States occupation of the Hawaiian Kingdom since 1893. So what you're starting to see is through education, it's not just here, all over the world, people are stepping in. And this is foundational to provide for the course correction on how we fix the problem. So, the law of occupation, the first rule is to maintain the status quo of the occupied country. You're not supposed to change things. Well, that's exactly what they did since 1893 to make it look like it's all American. That's actually a violation, that's a war crime, right? That's called usurpation of sovereignty. The second rule is for the occupying country to administer the laws of the occupied country through the military government, similar to the occupation of Japan from 1945 to 1952. A lot of people thought that the war ended when Japan signed a surrender. No, that's what started the occupation of Japan under General MacArthur, who administered Japanese law. It wasn't until 1952 that a treaty of peace came into effect that was signed in San Francisco that ended the occupation and returned the situation from a state of war to a state of peace. In our situation, we don't have a treaty of peace. We're just like South Korea. There's an armistice. No hostilities, but it's still in a state of war. If you notice, there were reporters that kept asking President Trump, are you going to sign a treaty of peace with Kim Jong-un? They're saying that because Korea is still in a state of war under international law, even though it doesn't look like it, okay? That's what we have going on here in Hawaii. So a military government takes over an already existing government in the occupied country by establishing a military governor. The third rule is that occupations are regulated by international law and not the laws of Congress. Because the laws of Congress are limited to U.S. territory. So this is the context of Hawaii, right? Before we start to delve into land. How does land work? So we can talk about Mauna Kea. So what is Hawaiian law? You know, a lot of times we tend to cite a lot of American laws. People need to start citing Hawaiian Kingdom law, the Civil Code, case law. That's what Hawaii had. Hawaii had that. Well, in the compound laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom, which is its Civil Code, Section 6 specifically says, the laws are obligatory upon all persons, whether subjects of this kingdom or citizens or subjects of any foreign state, while within the limits of this kingdom, except so far as exception is made by the law of nations in respect to ambassadors, because they have diplomatic immunity. The property of all such persons, while such property is within the territorial jurisdiction of this kingdom, is also subject to the law. So we talked about property, we talked about ka'ohe, right, government land, humu'ula, crown land, land titles. How does property work? Property law, namely land titles in the Hawaiian Kingdom. So we have crown lands. It's named what lands are crown lands, right? And it says these lands to be the private lands of His Majesty Kamehameha III, to have and to hold to himself, his heirs and successors forever. And said land shall be regulated and disposed of according to his royal will and pleasure, subject only to the rights of tenants. That means on the Hawaiian Kingdom law, native tenants. Anybody, any Kanaka that has native blood have rights in the land in all of Hawaii, called reserving the rights of native tenants. It's what is called an inchoate right, which means not a perfected right. Because under the rules of Hawaiian law, a native tenant will never be landless. They can always apply to either the government, the crown, or a konehiki to get land for themselves. It's called kuleana, a kuleana land. So it's in our laws as well, subject only to the rights of tenants. So one particular land that is crown land, Waimanalo. That's an example. Waimanalo is crown land. Much of Hawaiian Homes today, which is an American created entity, they administer crown land. So most of Hawaiian Homes are actually crown lands. And then the crown lands have been limited to 30-year leases since 1860s. But for native tenants, they can get a fee simple title. But everyone else is limited to 30-year leases. Government lands. So they identify what lands are the government, and it says these lands made over to the chiefs and people by our sovereign lord the king. And we do hereby declare those lands to be set apart as the lands of the Hawaiian government, subject always to the rights of tenants. And we do hereby appoint the Minister of the Interior and his successors in office to manage the lands. So when it says made over to the chiefs and people, House of Nobles, House of Representatives, it's the legislature. They manage it. So Hawaii had a very complex system, but very constitutional. Yet nobody talks Hawaiian law because nobody knows Hawaiian law. They always talk American law, not Hawaiian law. So here's a Land Commission Award. Okay, and this Land Commission Award, which was issued in 1843, this award verified a piece of property to J. Parker Ranch. In 1843, that was given to him by King Kamehameha III and the late Premier or Prime Minister Kekauluohi. This is equivalent to a fee simple title. So Hawaii had fee simple titles since 1843. Actually, it goes back to 1839. That's the first fee simple title issued. A lot of people say, oh, the Great Mahele of 1848 created private ownership. No. 1848, this is 1843. The book, Pehelai Ponoi, Native Lands and Foreign Desires, written by Professor Lili'Kalaka Melehiba, is wrong. Completely wrong. Okay. Here's a royal patent, which is a fee simple title issued to Robert Robertson. Notice what's over here. A condition of the title, reserving the rights of native tenants. How's that? Native tenants do not have to worry about their rights. But yet today we had no clue that these rights even existed because of that brainwashing that was going on to make us believe something that's not true. So how do you convey these lands in the kingdom? Right? These land commission awards, these royal patents. Well, it says here, all deeds, leases for a term of more than 1 year, or other conveyances of real estate within this kingdom shall be recorded in the office of the Registrar of Conveyances. Today we have what is called the Bureau of Conveyances, right? That's where every title is recorded. Did you know that Bureau of Conveyances was established in 1845? It's everything. The only thing changed was names. The car is still the same, right? Now, in order to record it in the Bureau of Conveyances, you got to get it notarized. And under section 1267, no person who is not a subject of this kingdom is eligible to the office of notary. can you notarize a Hawaiian deed to record in the Bureau using an American notary in Honolulu? Cannot. You gotta use a Hawaiian notary. Just like you cannot use a Hawaiian notary in New York transferring title in New York. It has to be done by an American notary, right? So we're gonna have a problem. What happened in 1893, January 17th? Was the illegal overthrow of what? The country or the government? The government. So if there's an overthrow of the government, that includes the notaries. Titles all stopped in 1893. Nobody could convey property. Okay. So deeds of conveyances of real property and mortgages after January 17th cannot be considered lawful. Notarized by a wrong entity. Everything stopped. Right. President Cleveland, in his message, admitted the provisional government is neither de facto nor de jure. They're illegal. They're insurgents. The president said that. So titles could not be transferred. We're just now coming to that reality. So let's say I own property in Waianae Valley because it was conveyed to me by Joe Ching in 1950. Joe Ching got that from somebody who had it before 1893. Where's the notary? Uh-oh, I think I might have a defect in my title. Hawaiian Kingdom law was to be administered by the president through a military government according to international law. They didn't do that. If they did that, we wouldn't have a problem now. We have a problem because they violated the law of occupation. The United States failed to administer Hawaiian law. Consequently, all titles in Hawaii defective since 1893. Unless in your property, you are still sitting on the same property that was held in your family before 1893. Then that's valid, right? So like land titles of the Kamehameha schools transferred by Pauahi's Pauahi's will to the Bishop Estate. That's valid because that took place in 1884, before 1893. Can you see what's gonna start to happen here? This is where the rubber's gonna hit the road on 1893 till today. So this is the tax map key, and you notice it all has land commission awards, royal patents. Your parcels sit on these origin of land titles. The problem is everything stopped in 1893. So a chain of real estate. Kamehameha the Third, 1845. That's when private ownership began. Issues a royal patent to Daniel Collier, royal patent 1225. 1874, he conveys it to somebody, gets it recorded in the Bureau, notarized by a Hawaiian notary. 1884, that person conveys it to somebody, notarized, recorded in the Bureau. 1894, somebody else gets it. 1897, somebody else gets it. Somebody gets it in 1875, and that's the property owner today. Problem is, we have a break in the chain of title. Number one, no treaty. So anything after 1898, first of all, in 1975, that must have been a state of Hawaii notary. Might have been my auntie. Invalid, wrong notary. January 17th, United States fails to administer Hawaiian Kingdom law after they overthrew the government. You look at the notary on that document in 1894, I guarantee you it's an insurgent. Invalid. Everything stopped. The person here, title is stuck. The question then is, how do you fix this problem today without throwing this place into economic chaos? That was the subject of my doctoral dissertation. My doctoral committee member said, how do you fix the problem? I said, I couldn't get you to even ask how you fix the problem until you could see we have a problem, right? But it is very fixable under the law of occupation. It's called course correction. Yeah? There's what is called the doctrine of necessity in the law of occupation. And necessity is the mother of all inventions. Gives you wide latitude, but there are certain boundaries. It's fixable, very fixable. So let me explain to you folks about property conveyances in Hawaii that may shock you. Because I'm gonna show you how this is gonna be tested, right? You gotta test it, otherwise that's all theory. Let's apply it. So, does anybody here own property? Or think they own property. Okay, I'm joking. Okay, so you own property, do you have a mortgage?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this question. What's a mortgage?
It's, title of the property that the bank owns.
A title to the property that the bank owns.
It's what I pay to the bank to get access to the title of the property.
Almost, okay. So when I say, so when you say, so, do you pay a mortgage?
Yep.
But how do you pay a mortgage if that's what the bank owns?
Well, I pay the mortgage, they own they have the title of the property until I pay the mortgage off.
Okay, so let's clarify the terms, okay? Because that's what everybody thinks. Actually, I don't say people are wrong, because I tell my wife I'm never wrong. I'm just temporarily off track. We just get back on track. Course correction, course correction. So, promissory note. A promissory note is the loan. What you pay to the bank is the loan, not the mortgage. The mortgage is collateral. It's what you give to the bank to hold on to ensure the repayment of the loan. So the bank is a lien. It's like the bank has a hook on the property, and if you default on your loan, you authorize the bank to sell the property to make up what you owe them, right? So you don't pay a mortgage, what you pay is a mortgage loan. Does that make sense? So even if you don't have a mortgage, you still owe the money, because that's the loan. So when you go to escrow, right, you negotiate, go through the process to acquire title, you sign a promissory note, and you also sign a mortgage. Okay. Now the deed is that legal instrument that you convey, that you have a piece of property, that's your asset. The mortgage is basically taking that asset and having the bank hold on to it. And then when you pay off the loan, the bank releases the asset back to you. It's called a release of mortgage, right? So you get making sense with the terms? Remember, terminology is very important, not just in international law, but also basic contracts. Because you're gonna see how this all plays out because of 1893. So this is a promissory note, okay? So borrower promises to pay $290,000. The lender is Argent Mortgage Company. And it says here, in return for a loan that I have received, I promise to pay $290,000. This is a mortgage, okay? And at the bottom here, it says security instrument. Means this document, which is dated this day, together with all the writers, this is not a loan. This is a mortgage that the bank holds on to, that you authorize them to foreclose if you default on the loan. Now that makes perfect sense if you're walking to someplace and you're borrowing $200,000. You don't want a promise I'm gonna pay it back. Like, brother, I wanna hold on to something when you walk out of here. Now, what if I go to Bank of Hawaii and I borrow $290,000 and they say, do you have title that we can hold on to as collateral? I said, oh, I own collateral of it. Really? Yeah, I've been in my family for years. Okay, you need to go to escrow. So when you go to escrow, the title company is supposed to do a title report to make sure that I actually own all of it. There's no defect. If they find out I don't own it, the bank is not going to accept my mortgage, right? Because how are they going to foreclose on an island that I don't even own? That's when escrow won't close and you won't get the loan. Now, if the bank says that I do own it, the bank wants something more than just a statement that the title report is valid. You want something to ensure the accuracy of the title search. Okay? And that's called title insurance. So title insurance is a policy issued by a title company after searching the title, representing the state of that title, and ensuring the accuracy of the title search against defects. So they're gonna look in the Bureau of Conveyances. They're gonna look into probate courts. They're gonna try to verify you actually own the property, there's no defect. And if they say there's no defect, the bank says, you know what? You need to buy insurance for me. Insurance that will ensure the accuracy of the search. So you need to borrow, if you're gonna borrow $290,000, you're gonna have to buy an insurance policy for $290,000 payable to the bank in case there's a problem with the title. So can you see there's a lot of pressure on the title company? They better make sure that that's an accurate search. And these title companies, they say they go back to 1845. They don't. They go back 3 conveyances. Because once you get closer and closer to 1893, that's like going into an haunted house. That's like your hair will stand out. So what they say, oh, title's good, issue the policy. Okay, issue the policy, people bought the policy. Guess what, if there's a title defect, guess what that policy does? Pays off the loan. You guys got that one? All of a sudden, ooh, I think having a defect in title is quite lucrative. Did you know that there's also an owner's policy? That's not in the amount of the money you borrow, but the owner's policy protects the owner of the property, and it is at the appraised value of the property at the time the policy is taken out. So even though the loan may be a $290,000 loan and an insurance policy to protect the bank, your appraised value of the property might be $500,000. Oh, maybe I should file a claim with the insurance company and get my money. All I gotta do is prove there's a defect in title. You see how simple they just prove there's a defect. Ooh, the pressure's gonna start coming on the title companies. So the lender's policy protects the lender, and an owner's policy protects the owner. I knew this back in 1990s. 1994, I came to the realization that Hawaii is not part of the United States. What was overthrown in 1893 was the government, not the country. The law still exists. I saw that. The Hawaiian Kingdom still exists. We're gonna test it. This is the impact. So we got a borrower and a lender. The borrower receives the promissory note and the money, and the borrower gives to the bank a mortgage. But before, when they give the mortgage, they gotta buy title insurance. Now, if there's a problem with the title, there's no mortgage, right? That's like finding out I don't own Kaho'olawe. What protects the bank is title insurance. That's how it works. Am I making sense? A lot of pressure. So, here's how we're gonna test this theory. You gotta walk the talk, right? So I woke up to this reality. Oh my God, the country still exists. Everybody's still sleeping in the Hawaiian air, you know. I'm waking up going, oh, oh, oh. Who's flying? Looking outside, we're still high. I don't want this thing to do a nosedive. So I'm going, okay, I gotta test it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test the fact that we gotta follow Hawaiian law, the law of occupation. I wanna test and show that nobody owns property. And when I show that nobody owns property, they're gonna say, I can use that as evidence to cash in on my title insurance. See, I'm gonna play that game. And I don't need a lot of people to believe me, because when I'm talking land, it's just record. I don't need anybody to believe me. I don't need 1,000 people to tell me, Keanu, this is a remote control. No, it's self-evident, it is a remote control. And I'm going to use it without your permission. And I'm gonna show you stuff, right? So what we did was Hawaiian Kingdom law applies. So we're gonna create a company in 1995 called Perfect Title Company. Notice how I pronounce perfect title, because nobody has a perfect title. You perfect it by course correction, Hawaiian law. Well, we're gonna show how you don't own it. But we gotta create a company under Hawaiian Kingdom law, not under US law. So under the 1880 co-partnership statute, it says whenever any 2 or more persons shall carry on business in this kingdom in co-partnership, it shall be incumbent for such persons to file in the office of the Minister of the Interior, the Bureau of Conveyances, their articles of agreement. Okay. On this day, December 10, 1995, we formed Perfect Title Company. The above mentioned parties have agreed to form a general partnership under the firm name of Perfect Title Company, in the business of researching, manufacturing, and selling of land title reports that will show people don't own their property. And you're gonna pay for it. $1,500, $10 a year for 150 years to do a title report. Title Guarantee charges $17,000 for the same thing. $1,500. Evidence to show the bank there's a defect, file the claim, pay off the loan. Company goes public, front page, I'm gonna read to you what was said back then. Now, let me first start off with a quote by Donald Will, a British novelist. He wrote, when a well-packaged web of lies has been passed down from generation to generation, the truth will seem utterly preposterous and its speaker a raving lunatic. Okay, watch what is going to be written in the 1990s then, but it makes perfect sense today. Back then, lunatic. Okay, it's good to do this compare and contrast of people educated and people not educated. So, title firm disdains land claims made since the end of the monarchy. Perfect Title considers any certificate transferred after the 1893 overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani to be invalid because it passed through individuals or institutions treasonous to the crown. Makes sense right now, huh? 1996. These guys are nuts. The kingdom. Created a firestorm. Title disputes bring trouble to Isle homes. Because what's happening is the title companies are panicking. Title Guarantee. They're panicking. And they're telling the news, making up this lie, that Perfect Title and Keanu are telling elderly people don't pay their mortgages. Remember, you don't pay a mortgage. You pay a loan secured by a mortgage. So back then, Channel 2 News, you guys remember Action Line? Yeah? The Frog Busters. Who was running Action Line at that time? Barbara Marshall. Barbara Marshall, who later became a councilwoman, was part of Action Line. She went to go visit John Jabinski from Title Guarantee, the lead counsel that is starting the spin. Deflection. Sort of like what you're seeing with the Trump situation, right? Misinformation, deflection, diversion. He tells her that we're telling people don't pay their mortgages. So she comes in, does an interview with me, and the cameraman is on me. I'm looking at the cameraman, and as soon as the camera goes, she starts filming, she goes, "Are you telling people don't pay their mortgages?" Of course not. You don't pay a mortgage, you pay a loan secured by a mortgage. She goes, "What?" I turn around, pull up the dictionary, mortgage, collateral. You don't pay collateral, you pay a loan secured by collateral. She went, "Huh?" Now, if you're telling us to not tell people, if we're telling people not to pay their loan, you're crazy. They owe that money, they borrowed it. But they have title insurance to pay off that loan, and they bought the policy from Title Guarantee, where you just came from. And she was caught, because she didn't know what was going on. She didn't know how to ask the right questions. That evening, on Channel 2 News, she goes on TV, she's saying, Keanu and Perfect Title are telling elderly people don't pay their mortgages. I was like, wow. And then, Joe Moore, he says, I'm a charlatan. Yeah, a charlatan. I'm like, what the hell is a charlatan? So I had to go look that one up. What is a shyster? Oh, bro. And then you see the propaganda. It's all misinformation, right? To get all of you to not believe you got title insurance, even though it's in your HUD-1 statement, and you pay the policy. So what ends up happening is title disputes bring trouble to Isle homes. Courts should punish land title scam artists for telling the truth. State must do more to stabilize titles. And if this whole thing is frivolous, then nothing should be wrong. Everything should be stable. Perfect Title, focus of criminal probe. How's that? Perfect Title has created chaos in Hawaii's real estate industry. With its claim that current land titles are no good, the company reaches these conclusions using 19th century Hawaiian kingdom law, which it says is still in effect, and by searching property records dating to the 1840s. Makes perfect sense now, lunacy back then. Imagine you reading this in Hawaii now going, oh, bro, those guys are crazy. But when you find out about your title insurance, you go, oh, what? But nowhere do they talk about title insurance. Nowhere. So there was a big convention that was put together by the Hawaii Developers Council, realtors. Because the realtors were running into a problem because it's called disclosure. Yeah, they gotta disclose if there might be a problem with the title, even if they don't believe it. Because if the purchaser finds out that the realtor knew, they can sue the realtor for failure to disclose. Even not disclosing the place is haunted, even though the person's an atheist. They're supposed to disclose. So because this was getting so hot, they kept going to the title companies. Is perfect title wrong? Not getting anything from the title companies. They're circling the wagons. So the Hawaii Developers Council put on a convention at the Hawaii Prince Hotel in Waikiki. 500 people showed up. I'm sitting on this panel with Donald Lewis, my partner, who's also the former owner of Prudential Locations, Locations Inc. at that time. He was a realtor. Then he found out everything's illegal. Bruce Graham from Ashford and Riston, an attorney that teaches land titles at the law school. Neil Hulbert, an attorney from Olsen and Hunt, representing Chicago Title Insurance Company, and an attorney from Bank of Hawaii to moderate. It was like taking candy away from them. We had slide projector, PowerPoint, they didn't know at that time. Fade in, fade out, slide projector. Names crossed out, pretty bad. People were shocked. And people left, when the convention was called, people left with their jaw on the ground going, oh my God, this is for real. Native tenant rights, oh my God, this is for real. They thought we were sovereignty activists. I was a former captain in the Army. I'm the most conservative guy you're gonna meet. I follow rules, right? They thought I was like yelling at people. No, just normal title. Names crossed out, this and that. So Bruce Graham comes up to me, the attorney, and he's the one that teaches land titles at the law school. He says, you know, Keanu, we gotta talk. I said, Bruce, okay, what's the problem? He says, you know, you're taking these people down the wrong road and people are gonna get hurt. So what do you mean people can get hurt? It's just a title report. I sent it to you. And I sent you my family's title report, the defect in title. And he said, I reviewed it. I said, yeah, I see it, you were holding it. I said, all you need to do is go line by line and refute it. It's a title report. He says, I did, and I can't. It is historically and factually correct. So I said, so what's the problem? He said, well, America's here, and that's just the way it is. I said, oh, I didn't know America was involved with title insurance. That's how it is. I said, we're good. They can't break it. Solid. 2 weeks later, we get raided by the Honolulu Police Department White Collar Crime Unit. They shut down Richard Street. Come in with pistols. My partner and our secretary, 8 o'clock in the morning, going, oh, there's me. Hey, where's our stuff? This was after the raid. As part of a state criminal investigation, Honolulu police yesterday morning arrested Donald Lewis, David Kianusai, and a company secretary for investigation of theft, racketeering, and tax evasion. How's that? Has nothing to do with land titles. I thought we were telling elderly people don't pay their mortgage, because that's frivolous. Racketeering, that's Al Capone stuff. It's called, see, what it is you don't attack what is frivolous. You attack what is a threat. This is a threat. And we heard it came from Ben Cayetano, Mazie Hirono, down to Lee Donahue, straight down to the White Collar Crime Unit. How do I know that? Because I'm walking downstairs in handcuffs. Inside the van is Detective Jill Cowie. She's crying. She's part of the White Collar Crime Unit. She comes out, she hugs me, she's apologizing. Keanu, we weren't investigating you. This came from the top. I said, I know. See, Jill Cowie was actually sitting in a presentation that I gave to the Honolulu Police Department SWAT team. See, as a Kamehameha grad, get plenty of classmates who police, right? So I get a call from my friend Peter, who's in a SWAT team, when everything was hitting the fan. He goes, Keanu, what the hell is going on? Because they know me. Bro, why is this happening? I said, bro, it's land titles, it's not criminal. He said, do you mind if you can come and give us a presentation in the basement on Beretania Street? Hey, no problem. So I went down, gave a presentation. Detective Joe Cowie from the White Collar Crime Unit was sitting in. And they all said, this is not criminal activity, this is land titles. I go, exactly. That's why she refused to participate. But still get hit. And after you get hit, the reality kicks in. So my son was 8 years old. My wife and I were married 9 years. My youngest one was 5 years old. And with all this attack coming on me for talking the truth, right, I took off my ring. Nobody's gonna know who my family is. Then everybody thinks I'm a maverick, right? Well, now I have a PhD. Now people take my classes. I'm saying the same thing. I get to grade you. I get to pass you. And I put my ring back on. And the funny thing is, when I went to go put my ring back on, only went there. Never fit. To my wife, oops. Take it to Kaneo jeweler. Can you fix it? So now I proudly wear my ring again. Just celebrated July, my 30th anniversary. A lot of people, they didn't even know I even had a family. Good, right? But see, a lot of this is my military training. You stay focused, right? Incoming, just stay low. But I can tell you, confusion. So, perfect title executives, Donald Lewis and David Kianusa and 2 other people indicted. They couldn't get us on racketeering, so they made up one. Theft charges. They say we attempted to steal the land by doing a title report. This is crazy stuff. But you know what? I gotta walk it, so I got skin in the game, right? I don't even have a master's degree at this time. I just recently got out as a captain, and I'm going, whoo, war zone. Instead of rounds flying, liability flying, right? So, according to the criminal law, the subject of theft at common law is personal property. Interest in real property is not included, nor object attached to the soil. You cannot steal land. Therefore, you can't attempt to steal it. What'd you do? Find dirt in my pockets? I attempted to steal the land. That was a complete joke. But the reality is, it happened. The jury convicted me. Attempted theft of land. I'm the first person in the history of the world convicted of attempted theft of land. I guess what they thought, they were trying to intimidate. The verdict culminates the state's investigation into the now defunct company, which stirred widespread anxiety in the real estate industry when it challenged property titles based on the laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom before the 1893 overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani. Okay, all of that happened. Guess what? War crimes, unfair trial, unlawful confinement, no statute of limitation. All of a sudden, everything you said on the record is now going to be used against you. Yeah. That's why I recommend people stand down. Don't make a decision on this until you know what you're talking about. So it's just a matter of time before that happens, but my job is to expose the occupation. If anything, what this did, it proved I was right. That's what it did. Education is key. Education is key. So, legal opinion on war crimes. Remember Professor Chavez? Elements of the war crime of deprivation of a fair and regular trial. The perpetrator deprived one or more persons in an occupied territory of a fair and regular trial by denying judicial guarantees recognized under international law, like making up a charge. You know what hurt me the most about getting convicted, being a felon? I can't hunt with my rifle anymore. That pissed me off. Now I gotta hunt with knives, with dogs. Not bad though, I can hunt with knives with dogs, but the fact that I can't shoot anymore, from a guy that was in the Army, I was pissed. But, part of the process. Right? So, with that, I went to the Netherlands, argued a case at the Permanent Court of Arbitration, verified Hawaii to be a country still, everything we said, verified. Then from there, we returned home, got my master's in political science, specializing in international relations, got my PhD in political science. Topic of my dissertation was Hawaii's existence as a country, right? And what I did, I really used what is called analytical rigor to my advantage. I purposely selected professors to sit on my doctoral committee who I knew could not agree with me that Hawaii is occupied. See, that's how you defend your dissertation. So at the Dean of the Law School, Aviam Soifer from Boston College, his background is U.S. constitutional law. That's his LLM. Couldn't find anything wrong. Matthew Craven, international law, state sovereignty from the University of London. Neil Holbrook, who was the ombudsman at the University of Hawaii, law and judicial behavior. Katharina Heyer, public law, and John Wilson, theory of sovereignty. I only had one Native Hawaiian on my doctoral committee, John Osorio. None of them could refute it. All they asked was, Ken, how do you fix the problem? And like I said earlier, you wouldn't ask how you fix the problem unless you understood we have a problem. Chapter 5, how do you begin to right the wrong? Education. Don't throw your punch yet, because you're going to regret it. Get educated. That's what it's all about. So now I have a history book, which is my doctoral dissertation called Uamau. Covers Hawaii's history from the 18th century till today. It's the new history book at the Kamehameha schools, all 3 campuses. Also other classes. You know, so this is the process. And if anything, you're looking at, if there's anybody that has a right to be angry, you're looking at them. But I'm not, because I'm looking at the bigger issue. What our kupuna went through in 1893, this is nothing. But we gotta clean up the mess. We need people who are professional. And that's, I can say, good training from the US military. Focused, task-oriented, objective-oriented, task-oriented, and moving. You know? Mahalo for good training. It's not anti-American, this is just not America, right? So, how does all this then, and I think I may able to provide some context here for Mauna Kea. Mauna Kea is not about whether or not that site is sacred. The problem with Mauna Kea is the lease, the sublease to TMT. So, in 1968, there was a general lease that was made by the Department of Land and Natural Resources, the board, conveying, I believe, 11,000 acres on the summit to University of Hawaii, the University of Hawaii system. And it's identifying the certain parcel of property as Ka'ohe, which is government land that was not ceded. So if it was not ceded in 1898 by joint resolution, then how can the state of Hawaii, who got it from the United States in 1959, lease it? How could they receive a lease? No, the title stopped. Nothing was transferred, right? And there's Ka'ohe on the Hawaiian law, Hawaiian statute, right here. Government land. Made over to the chiefs and people, House of Nobles and House of Representatives, administered by the Minister of the Interior. The Hawaiian government did not consent to any conveyance of the ahupu of Ka'ohe. The University of Hawaii cannot claim to have a valid lease from the state of Hawaii in 1968. Therefore, TMT cannot claim to have a valid lease, sublease from the University of Hawaii. You see how everybody's affected by this problem. Okay. Goodfellow Company from Maui is the construction company that was contracted by TMT to build TMT on Mauna Kea. Building TMT without the consent of the Hawaiian government is a war crime, destruction of property, and pillaging. Remember the war crimes, Professor Chavez? The perpetrator confiscated or destroyed property in an occupied territory, be it that belonging to the state or to individuals. Also, usurpation of sovereignty, all the permits that were used, right? Those permits were all US law, state of Hawaii law, which is limited to US territory. That use of the permitting process is a war crime of usurpation of sovereignty during occupation. Professor Chavez says the perpetrator imposed or applied legislative or administrative measures of the occupying power going beyond those required by what is necessary under the law of occupation. You cannot justify using American law for permitting when you're supposed to use Hawaiian Kingdom law for permitting. See, this thing is supposed to be still law-based. It's not native-based. You gotta go through the correct procedures. So people would ask me, are you for or against TMT? I'm not for or against it. I'm just saying what's going on up there is illegal. Now, am I for war crimes? Or am I against war crimes? I'm not even gonna get involved with that. I suggest people stand down and take this seriously and get the lawyers involved to have them refute this stuff, right? So, I was approached by Tamara Paulton from Maui County Council, who's acting on the interests of Goodfellow Company, because those people at Goodfellow are Maui residents, right? And she asked me after I did the workshops for Maui County Council, what are my thoughts on Mauna Kea? So I wrote up a letter, put that letter together, explained to her all of this. and how there's a defect in title. Nothing was conveyed in 1898. There is no such thing as ceded lands. And that these are war crimes, and here's the evidence of it, this and that. So she took my paper, attached it as a letter that she sent to President Lasner, and carbon copied Governor Ige, DLNR, and everyone else, and said, this is information that shows there is a problem with the title, and that at issue are possible war crimes to be committed by people from Maui. So in that letter, she asked President Lasner, respectfully, to pass this on to the University of Hawaii Legal Counsel to refute. That would be the proper step, right? Get the legal people to refute this information, and if it can be refuted, disregard the letter. Simple. That's a right question. She gets a response a week later from President Lasner, shifting it onto Governor Ige. Governor Ige is taking care of these issues, and it seems to be everything is fine. Not citing, where are you refuting this information I'm telling you? So she followed up. She says, so by you not denying what I'm saying, you are admitting to it. She responds back, like I said, Governor Ige is taking care of, it's the deflection. Can you see? Because it's real. But who's getting caught? The ones getting arrested, the police officers doing the arrests, those working for Goodfellow. Where's Ige and all of them? Where's the governor? Where's Lasner? You got other people getting caught. So they're getting caught in the grinder, right? That's what I remember I told you that one police officer that contacted me, he was asking, am I committing war crimes when I arrest Aboriginal Hawaiian subjects? And I mentioned to him, I said, listen, it's an order. If you're given an order to do something illegal, that is an unlawful order. You gotta stand down. And you gotta send it up the chain of command, show me this is a lawful order. Show me that everything can be refuted. Stop shifting. Just stick to the facts. Don't do what they're doing with Trump right now. Got all the facts and y'all say, no. It's the process. Look over here. Look right there. So we're dealing with the hard issues of facts, but now we're dealing with kupuna, elderly people who got arrested. So what's going on there? Well, the two attorneys I'm working with, they filed a motion to dismiss. And now they're saying the court is illegal. So not only the problem of the lease is gonna come up later, right? That's another motion. Right now they're saying, okay, because of 1893, even this court is illegal. Because this court was created under US law in a foreign country. And that if you cannot proceed a fair trial, war crimes. And that's all laid out in that motion to dismiss. And who are the people that are being represented? Walter and Loretta Riddy. Walter Riddy is Protect Kaho'olaweohana. It was that Hawaiian that was on the island that was stopping the bombing. And Walter is a 64 graduate of Kamehameha schools, I think 64 or 65. He admitted he knew nothing about Hawaii's history. He didn't know anything. Now we started to learn with Protect Kaho'olaweohana. That's the first time they came across the Queen's story. And they heard about an overthrow. That was like 1970s. Amazing how what's happening now is a giant is awakening. It's waking up. It's a pretty amazing, pretty amazing. And we still gotta still have aloha. We gotta still move on the rule of law. And I'm not into hurting people, but hey, if that's what you're gonna do, then I gotta do what I gotta do, right? But I'm gonna give you every benefit of the doubt. Stand down, brother, and start asking the right questions. That's the main thing. So right now, teachers are starting to ask the right questions. Am I teaching? Because you know that war crime of denationalization, obliterate the national consciousness. Now all of a sudden, teachers at the university, somebody can grab a curriculum and say, can this be interpreted as in obliterating the national consciousness of a country? Yeah, it's like, whoa, now all of a sudden, the mirror is coming up. See, now we're all being forced to look at ourselves and not look at others. And that's what's happening right now. right? Even Hawaiian scholars up at the university that are claiming that Hawaii's colonized, indigenous rights and all that, did you know that that has nothing to do with the Hawaiian kingdom? I see that as obliteration of the national consciousness. First thing I would say, hey Hawaiian, stand down. Stop peddling this, this made up story, because now there's consequences. So that's what's currently happening. It's kind of an exciting time, because the one thing we don't have is people hurting each other, like in 1893. We just got people that don't know anything. And once you get them to know, they know. Then you start asking the right questions, and that is what is important. So Mauna Kea is not the end all. Mauna Kea is just a symptom of a bigger problem. But there's a lot of work that all of us have to do in our own professions. And the main thing is we gotta be even keeled, gotta still be humble, but do not mistake aloha for weakness. Because I will kill you with aloha. Make sense? Any questions?
Where is that hearing?
That's gonna be district court in Honolulu. In Hilo.
Because it didn't happen yet.
No.
And, go ahead.
So the thing when happens to you, is it considered a war crime?
Yep, unfair trial,
So why?
unlawful confinement.
What, has this thing all been dropped
No,
against you?
no, I'm a convicted felon. Actually, it works to my advantage. That's evidence of the war crime. You know, but you have to be focused in this situation, because this is a very complex situation. And I can see people panicking and running. See, there's two ways of addressing a crisis. You can either react to a crisis or you respond to a crisis. In the Army, we respond to a crisis. So a crisis is like an active shooter. Like, let's say an active shooter is on campus at one of the schools. What you will see are law enforcement responding to the crisis. So you know how you respond to the crisis? You walk in it. You have to be trained to do that. That is not normal. When you react to a crisis, you run. That's called survival, right? In the Army, we dealt with crisis management all the time. When live rounds fire, we go to the round, not run away. So what I had the privilege to have was good training by the military. So when that happened with me at Perfect Title, that was a crisis moment. I'm responding to it. I'm not reacting to it. Meaning I still have a game plan. And because there's no statute of limitation, I don't have to come after you now. Oh, but I got you, bro. You have just become a target of opportunity. Move aside, we move it on. I'll come back and get you. And I'm gonna hold people accountable for what they did, right? Because it is a war crime. But you have to be focused. Now, I'm not one to throw that war crime out all over the place, but it is serious. These are war crimes, and we gotta get used to it. And war crimes are specific. So the professor from Middlesex University, London, who drafted it, that's no joke. That's a big wig. That's serious. And he would not risk his reputation on a frivolous issue. Not at that level, right? So that's what we're doing. So a lot of us are just trying to find where we fit, right? But there'll be someday I can still fire a weapon. At a target. Yes.
I noticed that you pointed out Waimanalo as being Crown lands.
Right.
I understand the homestead. What about the place where we got arrested at Kaliloa? That driveway, that particular driveway is it Waimanalo's land? How do we reach the landowners to have them give us permission by Monday to be in the driveway?
See, as far as the Kalailoa, I don't know that. I live on a big island. I only see what's on
You
TV.
didn't look at the Kaliloa, the Kahuku wind turbine thing?
No.
Okay, I thought you might know.
No, sorry. I know the Mauna Kea one.
Right.
Hey, I don't know everything. I
I
admit that.
know.
But I can learn.
That's you might look it up.
But
Sorry, Facebook.
but there's, I don't even have a Facebook. Yeah. Actually, I went on Facebook. Oh, ping, 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 ping. I told my son, Chuck, put me on. Ping, 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 ping. I said, get me off, get me off. I was on for like 2 minutes. I said, I'm out of here. You want me? Email me, Gmail. Yeah, but I'm not on Facebook. No.
It's Honolulu, right?
What is that?
Honolulu, Ahupua.
Yes, under Kauai.
Okay, so I do know Honolulu is actually called Lohi Sahupua. That I know. but I don't know how the Kawananakoas got it, but the Kawananakoas actually traded it, assigned it to, I think, Hawaiian Homes, yeah?
I don't know.
Yeah, because Kapolei is not Crown Land. Honolulu is Kekaluohi. It was actually a Hawaiian Kingdom court case, Ha'alele versus Montgomery. That's why I know that, where that is. Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
I know that you explained this, but I was late, I'm sorry. But I just don't understand how can the UH get away with paying only $1 a year according to for what I heard. I went to another meeting before and they said UH only pay $1 lease a year. I still don't understand all of these years, how they're getting away with that.
I still don't understand why people think that Hawaii got annexed by a joint resolution. I mean, there's so many things in our history that just makes you pause going, what? But the bottom line is everything's illegal. It's all illegal. You can't pick and choose. It's like pulling a string, a yarn on a sweater. You keep pulling it, guess what happens to the sweater? It starts falling, it starts coming apart.
But if he is doing something illegal, why is he continue? What can we do to stop it? I mean,
The
if
key
he's
here
doing
is,
something illegal.
the key here is what we have, what took place for 126 years was violation of the law of occupation. That's what happened. We are living in the consequences of that. 126 years of violation. To fix this problem is to begin to comply with the law of occupation. If you folks get a chance, go on YouTube and type in Dr. Keanu Sai, Maui County Council. Watch my 3 workshops that I gave them, because that's where all these questions were coming from council members. Very specific questions. And I explained to them, not just the problem, but how we fix the problem. And that's where we're at. But you can't get to fixing the problem until you understand the problem. And to understand the problem it's very complex. And I try to break it down to make it understandable, but it's still very complex. So the key here is not to blame everybody. So as far as David Egan, what he did, if his actions do not meet the rule of law, then he gets held accountable. Not because I picked him. The fact that these people are being put through a trial, through usurpation of sovereignty, unlawful use of permitting, and then an unfair trial, liability now. Who's in the chain? And one of the requirements for a war crime, in order to prosecute somebody for a war crime, you have to have been made aware of Hawaii's occupation. Because you have to have had what is called mens rea, an intent. That you knew, even though you were made aware, you still went ahead and did it. That's culpability. That's called mens rea and actus reus. And that's what Professor Chavez covered. So not everybody committed a crime. So when I spoke to that police officer by email, when he did arrest people that could be perceived as an unlawful order, he didn't commit the crime even though what he did was unlawful. He didn't commit the crime because he didn't know. But then I told him, well, you just told me, you now know, because you saw the videos, and you are maka'ala. See, now you gotta watch what you do. And that's when I said, be careful how you play this. And the best thing is, what I learned in the Army, you know how they say crap comes downhill, right? Okay, actually, it's supposed to come down in pieces, but if it's one big crap coming down, you're supposed to push it back up, so then it comes down as fertilizer and not crap. So I told him, use the chain of command. Pass it up to the chain of command and tell them, refute this and turn this thing into fertilizer to show that what I'm doing is lawful. If not, I gotta stand down and tell my men stand down. See, then they're playing the game. They're not challenging authority. It's not insubordination. It's called you have a duty to stand down. In the Army, we learned that from the My Lai incident in Vietnam. Lieutenant Calley was given the order to kill the villagers, right? It's the My Lai incident. The military, as trained officers, they would say, we learned from that. So if an order comes down to take out civilians, that's a direct violation of the Geneva Convention. You gotta say, sir, with all due respect, I'm standing down, it's an unlawful order. Because if I do carry out that order, knowing it's unlawful, I just committed the war crime. And my men as well. So you see how this process, there's a process here to resolve. It's not a political process, it's actually very procedural.
But our police been told that if they don't follow the order, you know, they can be go to jail for committing treason.
No, that's not true. Somebody's making that up.
I have a friend of mine who, the daughter called her and said, ask her not to go to Mauna Kea, because she didn't wanna arrest her own mother. She may have to arrest her own mother, her own brother, her own cousin.
Oh yeah, but that's not treason. I mean, they're just refusing to follow an order. So they're saying, I'm not going. And that's what people are doing, they're standing down. But the point is that I'm making is, we need the police department to maintain law and order. But we don't need a police department that will do anything that they're told to do. They gotta think. They're carrying a sidearm. That's the issue. That doesn't give them a license to do anything. No, it's called procedure, protocol, right? So when I'm talking to people in other professions, I'm talking to them in their language, as opposed to talking to somebody else in their language or their profession. Because everyone is looking at the situation from their own perspective, whether as a teacher, a lawyer, an educator, law enforcement. Everybody has a role in this. And the one thing we cannot do is start dividing, right? But we do have to hold people accountable. That's number one. That's called the rule of law. But it also begins with us. We need to know what's going on. Yeah? Make sense? Okay. Well, I'm glad you folks came. I hope I gave information that you've learned, something new.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you to the Chancellor and Leeward Community College, you know. And thank you very much. Mahalo.
Thank you.